Traders, how are you? Marcello, founder of the Day Trading Academy, co-founder of Speed Up Trader. Today we got a lot of news on this version of the recap, weekly recap we do every week. Monday, the markets were mixed. We had the situation the whole week where we're kind of getting pawned. I always do the videos in Spanish first, so I have to switch in my brain in English. Where it's like, we have a stimulus, we don't have a stimulus. We have a stimulus, and that's kind of what went on the entire week. Monday was mixed. Obviously, the possible stimulus package from the U.S. government, but then we also had a situation with fears from the quarantine shutdowns that a lot of states are continuing to start and continue. Tuesday, the market was higher. Again, the progress on the stimulus and some of the relief measures for the COVID-19, more than anything, the situation with the vaccines. Wednesday, the market was higher. The NASDAQ hit a record high. And again, progress because of the potential stimulus. Thursday, we had markets that were higher as well. All three of the major indexes in the U.S., the S&P 500, NASDAQ, and Dow, all hit record highs. Friday, it ended lower, even though all three indexes did hit record highs, even though it started to fall back during the market session. U.S. stocks did surge. Right now, we have a situation where the valuations of a lot of stocks are extremely high compared to their average. Right now, they're at their highest level in years. This is the number essentially that a lot of analysts use to be able to see whether we are in a bubble or not. And every single time that we had these kind of bubbles, obviously 2009 was a bubble that popped. The tech bubble that we had in 1999, this is kind of a theme. So whenever we have numbers of valuations, let's say, of companies that are a lot higher than the average, things always come back to the average, right? So the S&P 500, the markets are trading at 22 times earnings, whereas the average, the historical average, is about 15.3. The tech sector accounts for nearly 28% of the index. Remember that on Monday, Tesla is going to be added to the S&P 500, so that's going to be even higher. And the PE ratio is 26.4 compared to 20.6. So we're way above where we should be, even though markets are continuing to make record highs. U.S. stocks for the week, the Dow is negative 0.44%. The S&P 500 is up 1.25%, where the NASDAQ is up 3.05%. In Europe, most of the markets were positive. The DAX, which was the biggest winner, at 3.93%. Latin America and Canada, mostly positive. My dear Colombia was up 3.54%, the biggest of all. And then in Africa and the Middle East, Nigeria was up 7.45%, while Egypt was down 1.31%. And in the far, far east, in Asia, Indonesia was the biggest winner at 2.79%, while Malaysia was the biggest loser at 1.94%. Big news in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Not only Bitcoin made a record high, it ended at 23,108.60. I literally just got a notification on my phone. It went up to 24,000 if I'm not mistaken. Analysts now are claiming that 30,000 is within reach. Remember though that when it was hitting the record highs in 2017, they were saying that it was going to hit 50K too. So I'm not saying that it won't get there, but as we see in the day trading industry as well, I just don't like when people, I remember during that time, I made a video 2 weeks before the crash to be very careful because it was in a bubble. Now it's still recovered. I still believe that it can go up and go down. It's still going to be an asset. But I would just be a little bit careful to listen to what of the analysts say, because obviously it's always going to go to 200,000. Oh yeah, it's going to get there tomorrow. Not to say that it won't, but just do your own research, right? Because in the Bitcoin space, it's a bit of fanaticism, so to speak. Now, MassMutual, which is a ginormous company, invested $100 million in Bitcoin last week. It's part of the reason why we've seen this recent rise. A lot of, one of the analysts at JP Morgan, remember JP Morgan is the largest bank in the US, they said that if companies like these, MassMutual, which they make billions, 40, 50, 60 billion dollars in revenue, if these kind of companies allocate just 1% of their capital into Bitcoin, there could be an extra $600 million in demand. 600 billion with a B, like boy, in new demand for the cryptocurrencies, including obviously Bitcoin. Other than that, Coinbase, which is the largest cryptocurrency exchange, I shouldn't say largest, the most prominent, they have decided to go ahead and go public. They have about $320 billion in total volume, in addition to $25 billion in assets on the platform. And it's what I've always said to you guys, you know, in the Bitcoin space, I talked to some Bitcoin people as well, that they broke the two-factor identification. I have a Binance account. I received some Bitcoins for stuff, the courses and everything that we do at Day Trading Academy, and also the funding. For you guys that don't know, you know, you have the opportunity to come and not trade with your own money, but with a funded account. We receive Binance as well. I'm not against Bitcoin per se. I just don't think the expectations are placed right. Remember that we have blockchain and crypto, right? Blockchain is what I believe is going to revolutionize the world. I don't think we're going to have Bitcoin as the new currency of the world. I think it'll still be an asset. Like I've always said, it's going to go up, it's going to go down. Could it hit 50, 100K? Yeah, maybe, right? But really, the technology behind crypto is the blockchain, and that's what people call cryptos. And what I believe is going to happen is that the governments are going to launch government coin or something along those lines. The ECB, for example, registered the term digital euro as a trademark. That's what's really going to revolutionize the world. And Bitcoin, it'll keep going up or down. It'll still exist overall, but it'll be just like another asset. For example, old school, older guys, they prefer gold and silver, whereas new generation, millennials and things like that, they prefer Bitcoin. And one of the things that I find fascinating, for example, and I'll put a chart here on the screen so you guys can see it. I'm trading mostly silver, for example. We had the huge crash in not EXK, it's my favorite miner. Don't buy it because I say so. Do your own research, right? But I mostly trade the silver miners. So one of these silver miners, I just slipped it, but Endeavor Silver Corp went down to about 98, 99 cents in March during the crash. I was able to buy it at 105. And if we're going to be like a lot of these Bitcoin enthusiasts, right? Well, yeah, if we talk about going from the very bottom to the very top in a matter of 3 or 4 months, it went up 354%. So for the year, Bitcoin is I have it here. For the year, Bitcoin is at 185%. Bitcoin is a good investment? Yeah, sure, if you pick the right spot. But I prefer something like silver, which can potentially have better returns. Tesla for the year as well, for example, has better returns than Bitcoin. So it's just a matter of preference. The USD, the dollar, has extended its slump. It's currently at 2.5-year lows. It's part of the reason why, for example, gold and silver have gone down. The Bank of China is suing BP in Singapore over its alleged role in fabricating oil deals with the collapsed trader called Lim Un Queen and his 2 children. They're trying to recoup the investment of the $312.9 million loss. And the Fed, Central Bank of the United States, is saying that the U.S. banks have enough capital to withstand a $600 billion loss. It could be a market correction or, loans that people don't pay back, for example. So they're allowing them now to be able to buy back their own stock and also start to issue dividends. They initially didn't allow them to be able to go ahead and do that due to the fact that they wanted to make sure that they had enough reserves to be able to survive during the pandemic. In commodities, OPEC is further cutting its demand by 1 billion barrels. We saw a lot of the major energy companies fall on Monday because of that. The U.S. companies as well are rethinking their relationship with China, especially when it comes to lithium. If you guys don't know, lithium is becoming an extremely important material due to the fact that we use it in everything like batteries, which are needed to power electric cars, in addition to smartphones, for example, as well. So a lot of companies now are looking to the South, specifically South America. There's what's called the lithium triangle in between Argentina, Chile, and Bolivia. And Chile currently is the largest producer of lithium in the world, Australia being number 2. Argentina and Bolivia obviously are not the most organized countries in the world, so they haven't gotten their processes straight. But a lot of these companies now are looking to these areas because lithium is about 54% of the total reserves of the total lithium that we have in the world come from this triangle in Latin America. Other than that, oil is up for the 7th consecutive week. Crude is up 5.43% at $49.10. International Brent is up 4.58% at $52.26. And remember, don't forget to like the video. It helps a lot with the algorithms if you guys continue to do that. The Day Trading Academy channel for some reason got banned. So we're going to just be doing these videos now on Wandering Trader for you guys that followed me for a while. Precious metals mostly lower on Friday. Overall for the week, gold was up 2.28% and went up to 1,882, while silver went up 7.62% to $27.84. In political news, U.S. Attorney General has submitted his resignation to Trump to be able to go ahead and resign before Christmas. They have had a little bit of a clashing of issues, including Trump's claims of widespread fraud in the election. U.S. Supreme Court has ruled also 6-3 on Friday along ideological bounds, bipartisan bounds, to be able to not allow the population, the illegal immigrant population in the United States, to be able to be included in the census. And this is really important because essentially what's happening right now in the U.S., we have a bit of a battle between the right and the left, right? So the census is important because depending on the amount of population that you have is going to depend on the districting in the United States for voting. So obviously a lot of the illegal immigrant population are in a lot of these states like California and New York, the big population centers, Florida, for example, as well, Miami specifically. And so what happens is if they have more population, the Republicans don't want them to be able to include it, whereas the Democrats do because of other reasons like legitimacy and they have rights and things like that. So I'm not going to say what's right or wrong. I'm just letting you know what's going on in terms of the news. And remember, I try not to get political when I do these videos. One, because you will get censored, obviously, and two, because I just think we're all tired of this political stuff, right? So that's essentially what's going on, and it's a pretty important Supreme Court case because depending on what happens with the redistricting, obviously one of the parties in this scenario, the Republicans, are going to have more favor, let's say, in the voting. Other than that, in economic news, the number of Americans filing for first-time jobless benefits unexpectedly increased this week to a seasonally adjusted 885,000. The expected number was 800,000 for last week. Jobless claims are now at a 14-week high. And in corporate news, the exodus from high-tax socialist paradise California continues. Oracle, remember that the founder of Oracle is one of the richest men in the world. They're moving their headquarters from California to Texas, which is the most recent Silicon Valley bigwig to be able to depart the state. Remember, Joe Rogan left. Elon Musk now has reported that he's relocated from California to Texas. HP, Hewlett-Packard Enterprises, also say that they're relocating their headquarters from the San Jose, California office to Houston, Texas. And Palantir is moving from Denver to from Palo Alto to Denver as well. So a lot of people don't like high taxes, low benefits, and bureaucracy. Apple shares on Tuesday after it reported that it was going to increase its production of 5G iPhones skyrocketed as well due to surging demand. Their nearly 30% increase from year over year in terms of production and sales of the iPhones from the first half of 2021 is what they're expecting. And they expect to produce 96 million, which is the 30% higher number instead of the 95 million. Tesla shares are traded heavily on Friday in anticipation of their addition onto the S&P 500 index. The electric car firm was up 6% on the news, and it's going to be at a record high. It hit a record high of $695. The stock is up 730.68% for the year. See, I mean, there's just better options than Bitcoin, but that's just me. Other than that, in trade news, the Prime Minister Scott Morrison says Chinese ban on Australian coal imports are against the the World Trade Organization, WTO rules. China, ironically, is shooting itself in the foot because now it's having a lot of problems with electricity. And when it comes to climate change, for example, for those of you that think that we should continue very vigorously in the Paris Accords and everything, again, I'm not going to get political about it. But one of the things that's very ironic is countries like India and China, for example, are literally adding coal plants at a rate of something like one each per month, whereas they're talking about people in Europe and Latin America and the U.S. stopping using coal and shutting down plants where China and India are not doing it, which is ironic, right? So if they're going to do it, everybody should do it, not just one or the other. Other than that, 50 vessels are literally stranded off the coast of China after China just decided from one day to the next to not receive the shipments from Australia. U.S. current account deficit exploded to 10.6%, highest level in 12 years in quarter three. The rebound in consumer spending pulled in more imports, which far outpaced the recovery in exports. The current gap is about 3.4% of GDP. And in good news, in Europe, they decided to go ahead and extend the negotiations for the Brexit in between the EU and also the UK. They're saying that they're still at odds in regards to some things, for example, fisheries and so-called level playing field rules. But the European Parliament wants a deal by Sunday so it can ratify it before the December 31st transition period end. Technology, WhatsApp, which has 2 billion users, is going to start offering in-person voice and video calling features to be able to go ahead and compete with the conferencing companies of Zoom and Google Meets. 2 billion users, it's the largest app being used outside of Facebook itself. And remember, WhatsApp is actually owned by Facebook. And in investment news, nearly 3.57 million people have moved out of the New York City area due to the pandemic. And one of the interesting things is, obviously, there's still a lot of people that are moving into New York, right? But the situation is, in New York, the percentage of people that pay the taxes is a lot higher than people who have the money. So what's actually happening is all these rich people are leaving New York, and the people who are coming back are lower income people who wouldn't pay taxes, or at least not as much taxes in New York. So they have a deficit of about 70,000 people compared to the people who have gone in and out. But what that has left is a $34 billion loss in New York. And the Communist Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York City, which a lot of people are against, he literally just came out and say that they want to redistribute wealth. And so the problem here is that, in my opinion, for example, rich people are rich for a reason. They're not just going to let you take their money away, right? They just literally pick up and go somewhere else, like Florida and Texas. Even Goldman Sachs, for example, has been looking to relocate from New York to Florida. Other than that, U.S. is poised to achieve maritime supremacy under a new plan to utilize $35 billion that it's saved from the quote-unquote endless wars. They want to have a 30-year shipbuilding plan, spending $167 billion to be able to have 355 ships by 2033. The question is will the successive administrations after Trump continue to maintain the effort? U.S. home building rose 1.2% to a seasonally adjusted rate of 1.547 million units last month. This indicates that there's a sustained housing market. The housing market between the construction materials and the workers and everything is a very big part of the U.S. economy. If I remember correctly, I can't remember the exact number, but I do remember it's between 10 to 20%. That obviously is great because that's a big chunk of the economy that continues to move. Google is facing its third antitrust lawsuit from 38 U.S. state attorney generals in the latest one. In addition to that, remember that the Department of Justice in the United States government filed and 11 states filed a lawsuit against them as well. So they're going to have to do some explaining because they say, they use their position to illegally control markets and buy competitors and limit markets to be able to keep them as the primary search engine. If you guys want to use another browser that's a little bit more secure with your personal information, there's one called Brave. And also, you can also use another search engine, which is a little bit, I wouldn't say better, but is as good as Google, but it preserves your privacy. For example, there's one called DuckDuckGo for those of you guys that want to use that. I've used them both. They're actually pretty good. In international events, Monday, the United States passed, unfortunately, 300,000 deaths for the coronavirus, likely to grow larger as the vaccine becomes more available. It's now averaging about 2,500 coronavirus deaths a day. The United States has 4% of the population, but 22% of the cases and 18% of the deaths. Remember, though, that in places like New York and New Jersey and Pennsylvania, the governors actually authorized people who had coronavirus, elderly people, to go back into the elderly homes. And that, for me, is part of the reason why we have such high numbers. In addition to the caseload, we do far more testing than other countries as well. Even though the numbers from China, some analysts say that they can't be fully trusted. U.S. lawmakers are also debating whether to attack on the federal government was from Russia or not. I literally just saw something saying that the media is overhyping the situation that it was Russia. So the name of the software that was hacked is SolarWinds Orion software, and it's compromised everything from the Treasury, State and Homeland Security Department, including branches of government. And this company's software, the majority of Fortune 500 companies actually use the software as well. So this could be actually a bigger situation than what we think. Euro countries are heading for stricter lockdowns and also restrictions as the cases surge. Unfortunately, in South Africa and the UK, they found a new variant of the virus that's supposedly more contagious. And in the UK, government also is trying to persuade Trump to lift the bans for people traveling to the US, because remember, who would have ever thought that we wouldn't be able to travel to Europe or vice versa? But we kind of live in that day now. Most people say that we're going to get back to normal after the vaccines. I don't think so. And even the US, Mexico, and Canada have extended their border closures through January 21st. In unusual facts this week, Tommy Thompson, a scientist and former deep-sea treasure hunter, remained in Ohio jail after he wouldn't admit to the court where the haul of 500 gold coins that went down in 1857 was located at. The court wanted to know. It's worth, let's say, $4 million. It's been dubbed as the world's richest shipwreck, but since he doesn't want to share the location, they're keeping him in jail. And other than that, in London, thousands of people have ditched the commuter. The very first subway, metro in the world was in London, if you didn't know. And now a lot of people are ditching the metro to be able to take electric scooters around. They typically cost about $400. They go up to about 50 miles an hour, 25 kilometers an hour, and now they're a much more familiar sight in the city. That's the news for this week, guys. Let me know if you have any questions. We'll see you next week.